Trent, that's a weird way to come in. No music. I couldn't do it. I couldn't play Pump It Up. I don't know. I do have a little bit of a soundbite here, something that should be familiar to you.
Well, I know the answer to that because he told me. Yeah, that was Connor on the sidelines.
Oh, Connor on the sidelines, Connor Stalions. Welcome to everybody joining us on a impromptu Tuesday late afternoon show here. We wanted to go live. There's a couple reasons why I wanted to do this. A, I know we've got Fan Led Wednesday coming up tomorrow. I really didn't want to spend the entire hour talking about Connor Stalions. Trent, you and I talked about this on Monday on our pre-recorded show. I just want to be done with it. I want to be done with the conversation. But obviously with the documentary coming out today, when you look at what the topic of conversation is in the college football world right now, once again, it's Connor Stalions, Michigan, sign stealing, all the BS. The beauty of this, Trent, is you and I watched this independently. We didn't watch it together. We didn't get on the couch. We weren't sharing popcorn or anything. You watched it on your own time. I watched it on my own time. We have not talked about it with each other yet. So really, this is our first opportunity to chop it up and sort of, I don't know, just on the fly, digest, talk about, share our thoughts, and I'm going to throw it to you first because you're fresh off of watching it, Trent. So the documentary's here. You sat back, you invested an hour and a half of your life into this thing. What were some of your takeaways?
Before I begin, I'm kind of curious. So I actually, like you just said, I just got done watching it about an hour and a half ago. So for you, when did you tune in? Like, I know it dropped at 3 a.m., but I'm sure you weren't up at 3 a.m. watching this documentary. So when did you tune in?
I don't even know that I want to share that information. I don't even know.
You were up at 3 a.m. watching Netflix?
Here's the thing. I did have my alarm set for 3 a.m. Because I thought, okay, we got to get prepared for it. We got to have some content ready for it once this thing comes out. And then I had that set for about 20 minutes, and then I turned the alarm off. I'm like, nah, screw that. I'll wait until the morning. But I did wake up at like 5 a.m, throw it on the TV. My daughter was like sleeping in bed next to me. I'm like, we'll just watch it right now. My wife came in. She's like, what the hell are you? The whole sleep schedule screwed up with the kids back to school. She's like, oh, is this the thing? Are you watching the thing? I'm like, yes, this is the thing. So there I was, 5 a.m, in my underwear, laying in bed. Connor Stalions on my television, just everywhere I thought I would be on Tuesday of game week heading into Fresno State. So that's how I watched it.
So, okay, let's get to the documentary. Dude, there's a lot to digest here.
More about me.
I prefer. I don't think any of our viewers even want to think about you in your bed watching.
Fair enough.
Connor Stalions at
there may be one morning. There may be one or two.
So, as I predicted, I don't think there was any bombshell, just out of this world information shared. However, I thought it was very interesting to watch, and I was pretty glued to it the entire time. I mean, Connor himself, we really didn't get the inside information like I was hoping as to why he did what. Yes, I was on and Dana, by the way, she wanted me to share this, that she thinks that it was all overblown. Like, after watching this documentary, it was just all overblown, and so that's what Mrs. Noop has to say about the situation.
Overblown.
So again, there was nothing out in this world shared. Himself, I think it was interesting how he got started. He went into the Navy's coach's office, was like, "Hey, can I do this?" And they're like, "Yeah, well, let's go to the offensive coordinator." And then it was like, "Okay, well, you could decipher signals." The amount of work that he did to get started is phenomenal. Like, the dude literally is a genius when it comes to deciphering signals. Obviously, as to what he did, or according to him, he can't remember if he did or didn't do, is definitely that gray area that we've been talking about. I thought it was interesting that nobody within the Big Ten, Michigan or the NCAA even wanted to talk to Connor about it when it all went down. Like, it's according to Connor Stalions himself, he was like, all this stuff happened. I believe Michigan came in, was like, "Hey, did you see all the articles in the news?" And he's like, "Yeah, they take all this stuff." they send him packing. And then it's like for the longest time, nobody even wanted to talk to him about it, which I thought was phenomenally weird. Like, this dude is at the center of everything. And then all of a sudden we don't even want to talk to you about it, which further vindicates what I think is the whole Jim Harbaugh NCAA. Hey, this is a reason to go after Jim Harbaugh. We have this Connor Stalions guy at the center of it, but who cares about him? Like, this is all about Harbaugh and Michigan. Anyway, I also thought it was interesting that they released the NCAA meeting with Connor Stalions on Zoom. Kind of goes to the third party situation. Obviously, there's a lot of people online who are kind of finger pointing at Ohio State, Ryan Day, his brother, and Connor Stalions' lawyer kind of straight out asked about it. Like, do you guys know who intercepted this from his computer? And the speaker for the NCAA kind of stuttered, and they're like, we're not going to release any of that information right now. So I'm not saying that it's anybody associated with Ohio State, but I thought that was extremely interesting of that. I'm kind of rambling on right now, so I'm going to let you go, and I'm going to just kind of parse through after that.
I'm just, like I said, we go live here. We don't plan on it. We haven't talked about it. I'm just letting you roll, Trent. I'm letting you take over the show here. I'm enjoying it. Yeah, I don't know. This is kind of how I sat back and watched the whole damn thing, just like this, except no shirt on, just in my underwear, like I said. It's just so damn stupid. And the documentary itself, as expected, didn't really get to the heart of the things that we were hoping to learn, that people want to learn, the heart of, what's at the heart of the NCAA investigation. We didn't really learn much. We know what the NCAA is going after. But in terms of, listen, I want to be careful here because I am not an advocate for the NCAA. In no way, shape, or form am I like an NCAA fan. But after watching this documentary, I feel like I can see a little bit of why the NCAA is extremely frustrated with Michigan. If dealing with Michigan is anything like what it was like to watch Connor Stalions on this documentary, I get it. So what I did is I just went through and I listed a few takeaways that I had from the doc, because I had to try to organize it, Trent. I had to try to get my thoughts together. I was yelling. It's 5 a.m. I'm screaming at the TV. My daughter's still sleeping. I'm like, screw you, Connor Stalions. There was just issues that I had. Number one, let's just right out of the gate. Connor Stalions is a super fan. He is the biggest Michigan football fan in the world. There may be some that are on his level, but there is no bigger Michigan football fan than Connor Stalions. Connor Stalions is a pretty smart guy. Now, being smart, like analytically, and being smart in how you go about your business, those are a couple different things there, but smart in terms of the way that he studied the game, approached the game, collected information, collected data. He might be a little bit insane, right? But some of the people that are really good at what they do, they are borderline insane. And I think you can look to Jim Harbaugh as a perfect example of that. I'm a big Jim Harbaugh fan. I think he is a phenomenal head football coach. But you can't tell me that there's not a little part of you when you're talking with him or interacting with him that thinks this guy might be a little crazy. And that's part of what makes it so fun to cover him. So right out of the gate, let's just get that established. Connor Stalions, they showed the whole background, the Naval Academy. Even before that, in his childhood, he's like dressed up as Bo Schembechler, his family, they were all Michigan people. Like, this was his destiny to one day get on the coaching staff at the University of Michigan, and he accomplished that goal. I do think it's a little strange, right? He's at the Naval Academy. He walks into like the coach's office and just says, hey, I want to help. And they sort of just walk him to a room and say, hey, here you go. You can help. Oh, he takes the weekend and goes to a coach's clinic in Ann Arbor. And in between speakers, he walks up to Chris Partridge, who's the linebackers coach at the University of Michigan, and says, hey, I'd like to help out. And Partridge just says, all right, yeah, show up on Monday. Is that how easy it is to get a job working for the Michigan football program? You just approach a coach somewhere and say, hey, I'd like to help out. And they say, yeah, sure, show up. We'll find something for you. So I thought all of that was pretty damn strange. But with all of those things aside, let's get to, and again, there was very little substance, I think, in this documentary. There was a lot of insinuation, a lot of speculation, but there really wasn't much of substance that I found in the documentary. Number one, right out of the gate, here's my first note. Connor Stalions is a liar. The guy is a liar. He is very clearly lying. He's lying about the tickets, about the sign stealing scheme. He's clearly lying about the Central Michigan stuff. We talked about this on Monday, Trent. I didn't think they were even going to bring it up on the documentary. You said you thought they would. It turns out, did they bring it up? Yes. Did we get an answer from Connor Stalions? I don't know. I mean, you tell me, Trent, when they handed that picture.
I can tell you the answer. He doesn't recall.
Okay. I have an issue with that, Trent. This is a guy who has like a 1,000-page manifesto, which he went through, which was, we didn't get to see all of it, but even the little bit that we saw was impressive. I mean, he pulled up like an interactive map of recruits over the last 10 or 15 years across the country, where they're from, where they got drafted, all this. I mean, this guy was extremely detailed. He had quotes and he had notes and he had different analytics and all these things. You mean to tell me that he can't recall whether or not he would have been dressed in disguise on the sideline? If that part of his brain just sort of malfunctioned and he can't remember that part, a guy who's that detailed, Trent, I'm not buying. I mean, you saw it when he was handed the picture. He did this thing that I've talked to you about. It's this sort of, I'm going to act like a smartass a little bit. I'm going to play up this sort of mysterious figure thing. He holds up the picture and he looks at it and says, I don't even think this guy looks anything like me.
With a smile.
That was one of the points in this documentary where I was like, okay, this is not a serious thing. This is not a guy who's to be taken seriously. Trent, when you saw that, were you disappointed in the response? Do you think maybe that should have been handled a different way? Or do you enjoy the sort of cat and mouse game that Connor Stalions seems to be embracing?
Well, no, I don't exactly enjoy it, but it's exactly what I thought was going to happen. I thought that they would bring it up. I thought they would ask him about it. We talked about it on Monday's podcast, but I didn't think that he would go into detail about why he was there, what he was doing there, how he got onto the sideline, because then it's going to bring Central Michigan into it even much, much further than what they are already involved with. And me personally, I didn't think Connor was going to get Michigan more in trouble, and I didn't think he was going to do anything to get Central Michigan more in trouble than what they're already in. So no, like, it didn't surprise me whatsoever. It kind of shocked me when he was talking to the NCAA during the Zoom meeting that he did say that, well, I don't recall a specific time that I was on the sideline for that game or at that game, I should say. That kind of shocked me because, yeah, I mean, clearly that was him on the sideline. Dave Portnoy from Barstool even said, he told me, like, yeah, man, like he was there, like he told me that. So clearly that was Connor Stalions on the sideline. Does it shock me the way he answered it? No. Did it shock me that he said he doesn't recall to the NCAA? Yeah, kind of. Like that part kind of shocks me.
I mean, he's a liar. He's lying. We know he was on the sideline. He knows he was on the sideline. He was cute with it in the documentary, but then when faced with the question from the NCAA, which again, I'm not advocating for the NCAA, but they asked him point blank, are you there? And for a guy like that, who's that detailed, who goes into that level of thought about everything he does, to just sit back and say, I can't recall, I just think it's a little bit ridiculous. And so to me, it's that disingenuous. It's that he's not willing to tell the truth that I think it might be fun for a documentary. It might be fun for people on social media to banter about and go back and forth. I just don't think it's a great look for the Michigan football program. And I think this is part of what's at the heart of the issue is this lack of transparency, this lack of honesty coming from folks at Michigan about what exactly happened here. And so, okay, so we'll start there. We know he's lying about the ticketing scheme. We know he's lying about not being on the sideline. Let's go to the second part of this other note that I had here. Why did he do it? This is another question I have. Why would Connor Stalions do it? And if you listen to him, by his own admission, right, he said something to the effect of, he said, I don't need video from people in the stands. He compared it to like that receiving a gift from your aunt of something that you already have, right? He's like, it's nice to get it. You're not going to be rude. You say thank you or whatever, but I didn't need it. I already had the signs. I already decoded everything. He says he doesn't need it. So why are you paying people to go to these games on your behalf if you're also turning around and saying it's not necessary? Trent, help me understand. Help me get in. I know this is a weird, scary place, but help me get into the mind of Connor Stalions. If your stance is that it's unnecessary, that you don't need video from people, then why are you paying not just for the tickets, but for the travel costs for individuals to go to these games on your behalf and record them? What's the thought process there?
Yeah, I thought that part was interesting. And obviously, like we've already kind of talked about, like, Connor Stalions was not being fully honest in this documentary. And obviously, if he's like, okay, let's just talk about the tickets first. So he was saying that he made a bunch of money, a profit, by buying and selling these tickets to other games. First off, why are you buying and selling tickets to a Clemson Ohio State game? Like, why, as a Michigan coach, why are you even attempting to buy tickets and then sell them? Like, granted, I realize there probably could be a profit made in that, but why are you even going about doing that?
Well, this is why, Trent, right here. I mean, Joe from the Facebook page says it. These are just gifts because he couldn't go. He's a kind guy. He wants to buy, and I mean, he's not trying.
What he said.
He doesn't want to put you up in the nosebleeds, Trent. He wants to put you down first row, 50-yard line at premier game. This is a kind guy. I think maybe he's just looking out for the greater good. No, you're not buying into that.
Not exactly. I mean, I think he was more than willing to give these tickets to his friends and family that might record video evidence of what the sidelines were doing. But past the tickets, just talking about the video surveillance and stuff like that, I do think it's fascinating, and I do believe him on this, that every school has someone like a Connor Stalions where on Sundays they will call each other and give signs away. That, for example, Michigan plays Rutgers. Well, I'm going to call Indiana. I'm going to call their Connor Stalions and talk about it, what Rutgers might be doing, since we just got done playing them. So I thought that was fascinating. And again, I do believe that is part of what they do. So you have that. You have the film, like he was saying, that he used, is what he said, that he uses the film that they get to study the signs and signals of the other team's sideline. So yeah, so if you have all of this at your disposal, why do you need to buy tickets and send your friends and family to the opposing games or opposing team sidelines to look at it? Clearly he was using it. Clearly it was a lie. So to answer your question, I can't get into Connor Stalions' mind to figure it out because it was clearly a lie.
Well, yeah, once again, like another thing that he was lying about, which I just, I have to imagine he saw this thing before it came out, right? This wasn't his first time watching it. I just don't know how he thought this was a good look for him, because in multiple instances, you can see he's not being truthful, especially for a guy who prides himself on being so detailed. And I go back to that interaction that he had with the NCAA investigators, right? Which I am blown away that they put that footage in the documentary, because there's not a chance in hell that the NCAA approved that. I don't think the NCAA was any part of this documentary in any way, shape, or form. But to see this sort of virtual discussion back and forth between Stalions and his lawyers and NCAA investigators, not only did they ask him, were you on the sideline of the Central Michigan game, which he couldn't recall if he was there, odd stance to take. They also asked him specifically about, did you instruct people to go to these games on your behalf? Did you instruct people to take video on your behalf? Was there any sort of video exchange? He said he never instructed anybody to do anything, but that there were some people that went to games on the tickets that he sold them or gave them that sent him video. But the funny part about that, Trent, is that he couldn't recall who those people were. So now I'm supposed to believe that you're selling somebody or giving somebody a ticket. Those people are going to the game, sitting in your seat, turning around and sending you video footage from the game, and you don't recall who they are? You have no recollection of that? A guy who's that detailed, Trent, are you buying that? He admitted he received video, right? From the people who attended the games on his behalf or sat in his seat, but he couldn't remember who it was. You buying that?
No, once again, I don't think that that's entirely true either. I'm sure he had, I mean, what was in the initial report? He had like 15, 20 people that he would.
Vast network.
Yeah, vast network. I thought there was like a more detailed number at some point in time. I was thinking it was like 15, 20 people that he used to go to these games. But yeah, I mean, his mom was one. His friend Zach on the film was one of them. And you know, and to be fair, maybe he didn't exactly go, "Hey, here's this ticket. I want you to film the entire game for me. I want you to send me all the film." It could have been "Hey, here's this ticket to a game. If you would choose to send me some film or something, you know, I mean, it wouldn't hurt," type of thing. So maybe he didn't necessarily,
but he didn't need it by his own admission,
right? He didn't need it, but maybe that's how he didn't exactly direct it. So maybe that wasn't an actual lie. I don't know. The whole thing's extremely man, there was a lot of BS in this thing, that's for sure. But yeah, at the end of the day, it was interesting.
It was interesting. It was, somewhat entertaining only because, this guy has been sort of this mysterious figure for the last 10, 11 months, right? We haven't heard anything from him. Now, all of a sudden, here he is on your television set, basically going through, here's the manifesto. I'm not going to give you all of it, but here's a little bit. And kind of, there's this network I got plugged into, and this happens all around college football, and, being cute about the Central Michigan stuff and not giving straightforward answers to the NCAA when he's clearly lying. I mean, we all know that he wasn't being truthful. So once again, I go back to, I know he saw this before it was released. I can't imagine that he would think that this would paint him in a good light. And more importantly, how this would paint the University of Michigan in a good light. Because where I am now, as not just somebody who covers the program, but as a fan, I said this right at the very beginning. If this is what the NCAA has had to deal with, in terms of what it's like communicating with people on Michigan's side, how forthcoming they are with information, what the strategy is here, I would be pretty irritated too, because it doesn't sound like anybody wants to give a straightforward answer. I mean, I know Grant Newsom eventually came forward on the recruiting violation stuff, but Jim Harbaugh, by all accounts, was very stubborn. Same thing. Couldn't recall, didn't remember. It wasn't until he was faced with a receipt that, oh, yep, I guess I was there. You can tell him I was there, sort of thing. And so maybe this is Michigan's approach. Just deny, deny, deny. We're not going to admit to anything until we get caught red-handed, which it does sound like, I mean, is Connor Stalions outside of the Central Michigan thing? Do they have him caught red-handed in the building? No, but Dan Wetzel of Yahoo Sports very plainly said, like, I went and, through an FOA sort of form, I reached out to these different programs, and the security footage shows somebody sitting in the seat that Connor Stalions purchased, holding a cell phone, recording the whole time in all of these different instances. So I just think this whole, and I saw somebody bring it up, plausible deniability, just deny, deny, deny. Is that really what we want to do? Is that the best look? Because to me, all that strategy does is drag the process out longer than it needs to be. And quite honestly, I think it's part of what's going to contribute to the punishment being harsher than it needs to be, because nobody from Michigan's side seems to want to fess up or admit to anything. Trent, how much, I guess, validity do you give to that? Like, if this was a window or insight into what it's been like between the NCAA and the University of Michigan, do you think that this type of conduct is going to have a positive, negative impact on what the ultimate decision is from the NCAA in terms of a punishment moving forward?
I mean, I'm sure ultimately it's going to be more negative than it will be positive. If Jim Harbaugh or Connor Stalions or Michigan itself would have just came out and said, hey, here's what we did. Here's our phones. Here's our computers. Do whatever you want to do. Look through it. We'll answer any questions you want. We'll be completely honest. But I don't think that's real life. I feel like we're talking about this because it's Michigan, and we're in the know because it's Michigan. We're covering the team. But I feel like if you look at any program that's been investigated from the NCAA, I feel like the big reason that it just goes on and on and on and on for investigations is because nobody wants to be completely honest with what they did. Example, recently, Kirk Ferentz from Iowa, he suspended the first game because of illegally contacting Cade McNamara out of the transfer portal. I get those are two completely different things, but that happened 2 years ago. And they're just now getting a resolution. fairly certain Kirk Ferentz probably didn't walk up to the NCAA when they first asked him about it and said, yeah, I did it. Like, I went out and contacted Michigan's quarterback to come be my quarterback. Like, I'm sure it didn't happen that way. I'm sure Iowa had their defense. I'm sure Kirk Ferentz had his defense, but ultimately the NCAA won over and he suspended one game. I think this is probably a norm for every school and how the NCAA handles everything. They're probably used to it. Granted, it's Jim Harbaugh. We know how Jim Harbaugh is. Michigan kind of has their way about things as well, and I'm sure it's not helping the situation. But I really don't think this is out of the norm at all.
Yeah, I agree with you. And Bobby from the Facebook page, the problem is the NCAA broke some of their own rules with the leaks. I mean, look, once again, nobody is going to bat for the NCAA. It's a trash organization, and they deserve everything they get from a negative standpoint. And they're probably not going to be around in the next 2 to 3 years. And so it's an irrelevant organization. But I think two things can be true at the same time. The NCAA is trash, and Connor Stalions broke some rules, right? 11-6-1, I think, is the bylaw that clearly states you cannot do any sort of in-person advanced scouting of an opponent when you play that opponent in the same season. And so two things can be true at once. This doesn't necessarily mean that we're advocates for the NCAA. But Josh from the Facebook page, he says, if nothing was actually done, then why confess to something you didn't do just to take the heat off? I'm guessing by the profile picture here, Josh, you're talking about Connor Stalions. I don't know. Does anybody believe Connor Stalions didn't do anything wrong at this point? I mean, I know that there's some super fans out there that probably believe that, but Trent, I mean, we've pretty much established that he did some things wrong, right? Like, I'm not saying everything was wrong, but he definitely crossed the line and did some things he wasn't supposed to do. Are we in agreement on that?
Yeah, I mean, I think he definitely crossed a line. And I actually want to talk about this a little bit earlier when we were talking about sending people to games. At the end of the documentary, he was 100% confident when he said that he believes that he didn't break any rules, that he exploits them. And I think that is where the gray area is with how the NCAA worded their rulings on different things. The in-person scouting. He was not at the games other than we know he was at one. Okay. We know that he was at Central Michigan and Michigan State.
Allegedly.
Other than that, there's been no evidence or proof that he was at any of these games that he bought tickets for. He sent family, friends, whoever to these games. And I think that's where the gray area really is. I mean, according to the NCAA rules, you as a coach or staff member cannot go and scout these games. There's nothing to be said, though, of you, Chris, that you say you want to go watch Penn State and Ohio State. Well, you cover Michigan. We all could DM coaches if we wanted to. I mean, what's stopping you from going to the game and taking a 15-minute recording of Ohio State sideline, send it to Sharon Moore via DM and be like, hey, man, if you want to look at this, go for it. The NCAA can't punish Michigan because you wanted to send them evidence of, or send them footage of Ohio State, of their sidelines. I think that's where this thing's really intriguing, because by definition of the rules, I don't know that Connor Stalions truly broke it because he wasn't there himself. He was sending people there. And obviously with Michigan not being forthcoming, I think it's just kind of made a ripple effect of the whole situation.
I think you make a good point. And I do, obviously that was one of the memorable quotes from the documentary, which was Connor Stalions saying, like, am I a good guy? Am I a bad guy? I don't know. I live in the gray area. Did I break the rules? No, I exploit the rules, sort of thing. Like, and I get what you're saying, that there does seem to be some gray area there. And I guess I would respond to what you said in a couple ways. One, if that is the case, if you are living in the gray area, if you are sort of exploiting, this loophole in a rule that doesn't really specify whether or not what you're doing is okay or not, why lie about it? Why not be straightforward? Why not just come out and say, like, look, this is what bylaw 11-6-1 says. It says this. It doesn't say I can't do that. And because we already know that stealing signs is part of the college football game, to me, if there's no rule that says you can't do what you're doing, there's no reason to hide that you're doing it. So I think that when you take that approach, it makes it seem like anytime you act like you've got something to hide, it says to me that you know what you're doing, you shouldn't be doing, right? Otherwise, there's no reason to lie about it. You're just transparent, right? Like if I go to the store and I pick up a Diet Coke and I come home and my wife says, "Where were you?" I'm going to say, "I went up to the store and got a Diet Coke." Now, if I say I'm going to get a Diet Coke and I go out and have some sort of affair or whatever, and she asks me, I'm probably not going to be straightforward with that, right? Probably a bad analogy. Hope she's not.
It probably is.
I'm going to lie to my wife.
You can never go get a Diet Coke again in your life.
I'll never be able to go to the store and get Diet Coke. But you get what I'm saying, right? Like if you're actually not doing anything wrong, you don't think you're doing anything wrong, there's no reason to lie about it. And so this whole pattern of dishonesty is something that I take issue with, because to me, the dishonesty says we knew what we were doing wasn't right. When you go and stand on the sideline at Central Michigan in a disguise, you do that because you know you're not supposed to be where you're at. And so this whole thing of like, I live in the gray area and I push the boundaries and this whole deal, like I found that to be very irritating. And I go back to what I said before. I find it to be irritating because Connor Stalions himself, right? And let's not forget the guy from the Washington Post, regardless of what you think of him or his part in this whole thing, he said that what this investigation uncovered was essentially a spreadsheet from Connor Stalions' computer that had a list of games, a list of names, who was attending what. So it wasn't like an on the fly, like, "Hey, Joe, what are you doing this weekend? Oh, you got nothing going on? Why don't you go take in, Georgia, Alabama or something like that," right? This was a detailed plan on who was going to be where. Obviously, the tickets were expensive. It needed to be funded somehow. But Connor Stalions himself said that none of that was necessary. I didn't need video from people. I already had the signs. I already decoded it. It was sort of a, yeah, hey, thanks, but I don't really need it sort of thing. I just didn't want to be rude by outright refusing it. And so if that's truly where he stood on it, then why do it? That's the whole thing. And the only reason you do that, Trent, is because you're so damn arrogant that you think you can exploit a rule, that you think you are smarter than the system, that you are willing to push the boundaries, that put your own personal ambitions above what is best for the team, what is best for the program. And I think that that's what happened here ultimately, Trent. That's, I guess, my biggest takeaway from this documentary and listening to Connor Stalions is that at the end of it, he knew he wasn't supposed to be doing what he was doing, right? He thought he was smart enough to exploit a loophole, but he doesn't want to be honest about how he did it and why he did it. And the reason you don't want to be honest is because you know you weren't supposed to be doing it. And when you combine that with the fact that he himself said that whatever was being done wasn't necessary, and on top of that, at the very end of the documentary saying, "By the way, I wouldn't change a thing." Like, are you kidding me? You wouldn't change a thing. There is a dark cloud hanging over Michigan's national championship run. Jim Harbaugh is no longer in Ann Arbor. He had to serve a 3-game suspension at the end of the year. Your ability to even coach Connor Stalions at any level, collegiate level, is in jeopardy. They want to impose a 3-year ban. He says he's going to fight it. You wouldn't change anything? You wouldn't do anything differently? So I guess when I sit back and I watch the hour-and-a-half long thing, overall, to me, the documentary was a joke. I thought it was interesting that we got to see the exchange between Connor and the NCAA, but the rest of it was speculation. Like, oh, this LLC here, and who was the investigative firm that dug it up, and blah, 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 and Ryan Day's brother and all this other bullshit. Like, I don't care about that, right? I think it's interesting if it comes to find out that, somebody associated with Ohio State had something to do with it. Sure, let's explore that and let's talk about it. But the guy from the Washington Post, I think, articulated it well, which was, at that point, it doesn't matter because what's happening with the NCAA is not a civil matter. It's not a legal matter. The NCAA has the evidence it has now. They're going to determine what they want to do with it. They don't care how that information was gathered, and that's not really any of their business. Point blank, they have the information. They know something was happening. That investigation is well underway now. So overall, man, I think we wanted to get some answers on things like, why were you sending people? Why were you at Central Michigan or at Michigan State on Central sideline? Like, what was the line of thinking there? Here may be a little bit of remorse, a little bit of regret, and I just didn't really get that from Connor Stalions at all. To me, he wanted to spend most of this painting himself out to be as a victim, somebody who does the same thing that everybody else is doing. He's just better at it, and he was treated unfairly. But at the end of it, he sort of pumps up his chest and I live in the gray area. I exploit the law. I don't break the rules. I exploit the rules, and I don't regret anything. To me, it was just such a bad look. And again, I'll say what I said on Monday. And Connor Stalions started out the documentary this way, reciting that Bo Schembechler speech, the team, the team, the team. You get after, you finish up the hour and a half watching this documentary. What to you screams that Connor Stalions was about the team versus being about himself? Because to me, it felt more like Connor Stalions was trying to do anything he could to put himself in a good position. Maybe the fandom crossed paths there and he wasn't thinking. I don't know, man. I don't know what went into it. All I know is that he certainly crossed the line and he doesn't seem remorseful for it, other than the fact that he got caught and maybe some other people got caught up in it.
I think we can both agree. I know we can both agree that he was not being truthful in multiple areas in this documentary. Like we know that he knows who he sent to games. We know that he knows that he used the footage that was sent to him, among other things, just like the Central Michigan sideline. Like we know that he knows that he remembers being there type of situation. With that being said, though, if you take a step back, like don't try to bring the Michigan emotions involved to it. But Connor Stalions, the way he got brought into coaching, being a Navy, for example, very first day he goes into the office. Hey, can I be a coach? Sure. Let's go talk to our offensive coordinator. Hey, you're going to decipher signals. He becomes really good at it. So then he goes to Michigan. He's still really good at it. And by the 2022 season, I think it was or 21 season, he was actually hired on staff.
2021.
Okay. By that time, I'm sure that there's been some stuff rolling around that when the sending people to games, so on and so forth. But with how the NCAA rules are written, he himself was not going to the games. He's sending other people there. So with that being said, like, do you see it being a possibility that he truly believes himself, that he didn't actually break any rules? Like that's why he doesn't regret doing what he did, because he followed the rules.
No, I don't. Because if that's truly what you think, you're just honest. Then you're just honest about it, right? Like if you don't think you did anything wrong, then just be honest about it. But he's not honest about that. He's not honest about what happened at Central Michigan. And to a certain extent, he seems to enjoy that cat and mouse game. Same thing he talked about, with the signs. It's a cat and mouse game, and whoever gives their signs first, you're the mouse, and how can we be the cat? Like to him, it's all sort of a war, win or lose sort of thing. And so I don't think he's thinking of it as like, I don't know, maybe I live in too much of an idealistic world, right? Where you get caught, there's some shit that happens. You just say, look, I screwed up. Like, I didn't think that what I was doing was wrong, but if there's some sort of punishment involved, like let me know and we'll figure it out. But here's why I did it, because I looked at this bylaw and here's how it reads. And based on what I was doing, I didn't think that there was any sort of issue with that. I think that if that had been the approach from Connor Stalions and from, maybe to an extent, Jim Harbaugh and from Michigan as a whole, maybe we're not even here. You know what I mean? Maybe we're not even at this point where this thing has become such it's like reading a comic book. It's like watching a movie. I mean, shit, we did watch a movie an hour and a half long, right? I just think if there was some honesty up front about what happened and why you did it, and if you truly didn't think you were doing anything wrong, then just say that. Just be upfront about it. But instead of that, it's been all this bullshit, and it's really just created this narrative that won't seem to go away. Once again, we're sitting here talking about it. It's going to be the topic of today, probably tomorrow, and then eventually we'll get to Friday, and start talking about the football game. But we talked about this on Monday, right? We know that the NCAA, any sort of punishment they hand out, this process is not going to go away anytime soon. Any punishment that Michigan faces likely is going to come sometime in the 2025 season, right? It seems highly unlikely we'll see anything happen this year, which means it's another year of wondering and waiting and, watching what's going to happen with this. When in reality, I think it could have just gone away pretty quickly had people been honest and upfront about what happened.
All right, so here's my next question. with him not being fully honest in the documentary. So as of now, like we all know that's Connor Stalions on the sideline, but I don't think there's actually been any physical proof that the NCAA has that is 100% Connor Stalions on the sideline. Also, with sending people to games, the NCAA has been trying to connect Michigan to that. Obviously, we know that's Connor Stalions. He admitted to it. But if Connor Stalions is 100% truthful with everything that he did, does that possibly tarnish Michigan even more than what it already is? Because maybe Stalions leaks some more information that the NCAA doesn't have, like evidence. Well, there's their evidence. If Stalions tells the NCAA everything they want to know, does that possibly hurt Michigan in the future? So like maybe he's saving Michigan's butt per se by not being completely honest.
But then doesn't that tell you everything you need to know? If the best policy is to lie about what you did because honesty would be even worse. Like, doesn't that really say everything you need to know? Like, I get what you're saying, but to me, we go back to this whole thing. Like, you asked me, maybe there was a chance that Connor really didn't think what he was doing was wrong. And so if that's the case, and at some point you find out along the way, oh shit, I'm under investigation for this, and they want to talk to you about it, maybe that's when you just say, like, yeah, this is what I was doing. I didn't realize I was doing anything wrong. Again, man, I got a daughter in 1st grade, a son in 4th grade. I tell them all the time, like, just be honest with me. Like, if you lie to me, I'm going to get pissed off. But if you're honest with me, we can figure it out. We can work it out. And that's always the best path. Travis from the Facebook page says he could have been on CMU's sideline, but nobody has actual proof that he was. If your proof is some photo that looks similar, which is a stretch, then that's pretty sad. Travis, look, man, I don't know what to do here to help you. I think 99.9% of the population that pays attention to college football, whether you're a Michigan fan or not, you know that was Connor Stalions on the sideline. If you watch the documentary, the way that he even responded to the photo, that told you everything that you need to know. And then, oh, by the way, Dave Portnoy, take that for whatever it's worth. He said, yeah, he told me it was him on the sideline. It was him on the side. I mean, shit, I can give it to you right here. Here.
Well, I know the answer to that because he told me. Yeah, that was Connor on the sidelines. That was Connor on the sidelines.
Yeah,
Connor on the sidelines. That was Connor on the sidelines. So it's not just me over here speculating from some like screenshot that I saw online. You have people saying Connor told me that he was on the sidelines. And to be quite honest, and I've said this on the show before, I had people tell me that Connor admitted to being on the sidelines. It just wasn't appropriate to say it at the time. So I don't really think, listen, there's a lot that you can debate about what's right and what's wrong and, the NCAA this and how things are playing out. This is not a hill that I would die on because that was Connor Stalions on the sideline. I don't think anybody's arguing that at this point. Kevin from the Facebook page, he says, why not just be honest in quotes? Wow, you think authorities care? The NCAA isn't yours or anyone's friend. Kevin, I agree with you. I'm not saying that they are, which is even more reason why I think you should be honest, because it's clear that the NCAA is not letting this go. Even if they're not getting honesty from Connor Stalions or they're not getting straightforward answers from Jim Harbaugh, look at what happened with the recruiting violations from 2020. He got a 4-year show cause. How long? Yeah. What was that? What was the whole? He's banned from college football for 4 years. We just saw a running backs coach who had who was it? DeMarcus. I forget what his last name is.
Marcus Murray.
Yeah, Murray from Oklahoma, right? I don't know how many, like 60 some text messages with 17 different recruits. He got a 1-game suspension because I think Oklahoma self-reported it, right? There was a little bit of honesty up front there, maybe. So that's my whole point, is that it's clear the NCAA has no interest in going away or letting this thing go. And so to me, honesty would always be the best policy in this instance. But, clearly some people disagree. They like the whole middle finger to the NCAA. Don't give them anything. Don't say anything. My argument to that would be, how much has that helped the program? Has that really done a lot of good things for the program over the last 10 months? And my answer to that would be no, but clearly people think differently.
And I fully agree with you. I've always believed honesty is the best policy, but being realistic about the situation, again, we're just diving into this because it's Michigan. Like Tennessee was just in trouble last season. There's all kinds of programs that are constantly going under NCAA investigation. And I would bet a lot of money on it that the process is probably identical to what's going on with Michigan. Like they're going to have their case, they're going to have their defense. They're not going to say yes to what they did wrong until the NCAA gets that hard proof and like, okay, here it is. Like Jim Harbaugh, we have a receipt of you buying a cheeseburger when these recruits were there. Like until that comes to fruition, everyone's going to say, I don't recall, or I can't remember, or no, I wasn't there until that proof is presented to them.
Yeah, and I mean, I am certainly, people appreciate your more realistic view of the situation compared to mine. We've got Brandon from the Facebook page who says, sorry, Chris, but have you learned nothing from dealing with the NCAA? No, I've never dealt with the NCAA. I haven't learned anything there, but honesty doesn't buy you any favor. That's willful ignorance. Connor did wrong. He knows it. Everyone else knows it, but there is nothing to gain by admitting it. I don't know. I don't know what to do with that. I don't know what to do with that because you're basically just saying, yeah, he lied. He did wrong. He knows it. Everybody knows it, but just keep lying because honesty is not going to get you anywhere. I don't know. Again, like I said, maybe I'm too idealistic. Maybe I just don't understand I'm just a 40-year-old dad, like living in my own bubble here. I don't know how the real world works, but there seems to be a lot of people that are advocating for this whole sort of just keep lying because you're not going to gain anything by being truthful anyway. I have a real hard time with that stance, particularly from people associated with a university that are leaders and best, and we do things the right way. And Jim Harbaugh being quoted, it's hard to beat the liars and the cheaters. Brandon, I mean, the consequence of what you're saying there is you're essentially saying, we're just like everybody else. We're no better than everybody else. And if you want to play in that sandbox, that's fine. I can get down with that. I've talked about this before, like throw a bag to somebody, all the dirty tricks with recruiting. I don't care. Bring some sort of elite 5-star quarterback here with a rap sheet who can't pass his classes, but he's incredible on Saturdays. Do whatever you have to do. But when I was making that push, everybody, no, that's not the Michigan way. And remember when Michigan was getting their asses kicked by Ohio State left and right? It's like, well, we do things the right way. Our players have to go to class. We don't cheat. We don't lie. Brandon, that stance, that's kind of counterproductive and counter to everything that Michigan claims it stands for. Trent, I mean, what do you have to say about that? There's nothing to gain by being honest, so just lie.
I mean, once again, I don't endorse that. Like, I don't think that you should lie about being in the wrong. Like, yeah, I think you're right. I think if Michigan would have came out, and I say Michigan, but if Connor Stalions would have came out and been forthright and honest, I'm guessing this whole thing would probably be basically over by now. And I think we would have known what would have happened. But realistically, it's just not what happens. Like, again, like these teams have their defense. They're going to put their foot in the sand and be like, okay, here's our stance on it. And we're not budging. And that's exactly what Connor Stalions and Michigan is doing right now. Like they have their foot in the sand. They have their stance. They've had it since last season and they're not budging on it.
Yeah. I mean, again, Travis, like, no, my proof is not Barstool.
Like that was clearly. Just look, that is Connor Stalions on the sideline.
Travis, you can die on this hill if you want. I mean, it's going to be a lonely hill to die on because the vast majority of people understand what they saw, including Connor Stalions himself. But I'm not going to have that debate with you. Let's go through a couple more here before we hop off because I am over it.
I've seen a lot of the people want to talk about that Brohio guy. What'd you think of him?
What are your thoughts when you saw Brohio on your screen? Who in the getup there, he had the face mask and the sunglasses on. He's apparently some sort of message board warrior, sleuth, detective type guy connecting the dots. I mean, this is who's leading the charge down in Columbus. This is who's putting together the pieces. I mean.
I didn't know what to think. I'm like, who is this guy? Why is he hiding his face? Like, most people wouldn't take all credit for what they're doing. And if he was truly the ringleader of putting the pieces together and this and that, like, wouldn't you think he would rip that mask off me? Like, here I am. Follow me on Twitter. Follow me on, or add me on Facebook. Here's my IG account. Like, follow me everywhere. Instead, like he's hiding behind that mask. And I thought that was absolutely wild.
Yeah, I don't even really know how to answer the whole Brohio thing. I mean, I think it's just so on brand for the story, so on brand for Ohio State in general. Like, it just all made sense to me as I was watching it. It's just, here's another unserious element of this documentary. Jonathan from the Facebook page, he says, it's one thing to outright lie. It's another thing to be smart, especially if you look at this through a judicial perspective, which it's not, by the way. But he says, you don't just roll over and plead guilty. You go through the process, answer like a smart lawyer. I mean, look, Jonathan, I can push back on that all I want, but like, it worked pretty well for OJ, right? I mean, you know, we all know what happened there, but it worked pretty well, turned out good for him in the end. And so, yeah, I don't really have a good argument for, for people who are advocating for being dishonest when you think it can get you off or there's nothing to gain by being honest. I don't know, man. That's just kind of the world that I live in, where I think if you try to lie and you try to drag things out, to me, that's why we are where we're at today, because there wasn't honesty up front. That's not to say that the NCAA wouldn't have tried to do something or that there still wouldn't have been some sort of punishment handed down. I just don't think it would have become everything it became. I mean, let me ask you this, Trent. How less interesting is this story if, when news breaks, let's say a day, 2 days after Connor Stalions resigned / fired, whatever you want to believe about what happened there with the University of Michigan, he does some sort of interview with local media and he says, here's what happened. Yeah, I paid people to go and scout games. Here was the NCAA bylaw. Based on what it said, I thought I was well within the rules to be able to do that. It turns out I may have been wrong, and so I'll have to come to terms with that and figure out what that means. The Central Michigan thing, like, yes, that was me on the sideline. I was helping out Central. I was doing, let's just say he took that route. How less interesting do you think that story would have been over the last 10 months?
Much less interesting. I guarantee you there's not a Netflix documentary about it. Like, if this story would have been over 2 weeks after it broke, because Connor Stalions has his meeting, I think it's probably about over. Like, obviously you still have to go through the NCAA investigation. You still have to hear what they have to say, but with everything that's transpired since, I definitely don't think it would have been where we're at today. That's for sure.
I mean, if the glove doesn't fit, you must acquit. And I guess we'll find out in the coming days whether or not the glove fits for Connor Stalions. But yeah, you know what, CJ, you're right. How dare I? I shouldn't be thinking rational. I shouldn't be approaching this as a sane person. I should just, holy shit, I almost lost my microphone here. I should just join the cult. I should just, put on the maize and blue glasses, middle finger to the NCAA, screw everybody. Connor Stalions is a hero. Michigan Wolverines are national champions. Everybody else can go to hell. Maybe that should be the stance that I take. Look, nothing that happens with this, with Connor Stalions, with the NCAA, whatever it is they choose to do in the future, none of that is going to take away from the enjoyment I had over the last 3 years. Nothing is going to rob me of that. Those are experiences that I had that I'll carry with me for the rest of my life. But when we talk about this instance in particular, free Stalions the GOAT. Yeah, I see it. It's not a cult. Jen, let's be real here. I love Michigan fans. There's a lot of them in here. It's not all common sense among this group. Like, let's just be real about that. There's some common sense in here, and we can disagree and we can come at it from a different perspective, but there's some people that are just really embracing this and enjoying it. And I think that's I think it's a bad look for the football program. I think it's a bad look for Connor Stalions. I think it's a bad look for the whole thing overall, but that's just me. CJ says, let's inject some joy back into this. We got football on Saturday. Let's leave it there, Trent, as we are approaching 53 minutes. Is there anything before we get out of here? Anything that you feel like you got to get off your chest? Because I'm going to be honest. I'm making a deal with myself that beyond this show, now somebody might bring it up on Wednesday, on Fadland Wednesday, and we'll have to, we'll be polite. We'll answer the questions or whatever. But I am not going to do another Connor Stalions related topic on this show.
Until more news breaks, right?
No, I'm not doing it. I am not going to be the one to do it, right? We've got Fresno State on Saturday. It's the 2024 season. I am turning the page on this shit. That's why I wanted to let's just get on here today. Let's spend an hour talking about it, and then let's move on. I am not talking about Connor Stalions on the podcast moving forward. So, Trent, this is your last opportunity. Anything you want to say about this guy? Any proclamations? Any love you want to? Anything you want to say about it? Do it now.
I might not be on the same level as you with your hatred for everything going on right now, but I'm definitely tired of talking Connor Stallion. So I think we both kind of had our say and our piece at it. So I'm with you. Like after today, unless something major drops, like we can be done with the Connor Stallions talk.
Amen.
Who's got it better than us? Nobody!
Let's just get to football talk. We'll be back on Wednesday. We're going to send the show out the right way. We didn't come in with any music, but let's send it out the right way. We'll be back Wednesday, fan-led Wednesday. That's right. It's giving me heart issues. I cannot talk about Connor Stalions anymore. Best of luck, Connor. I'm glad you got your 15 minutes. We're moving on. We'll see you Wednesday here, 6 p.m. for fan-led Wednesday. Appreciate everybody for dropping in here. Extremely active comment section. Love you guys. Trent, nothing but love for you. Have a good night.
This was a good one. We had a great interaction. It was fun.
Great interaction. We'll see you Wednesday.
My stomach is sick and it's all in my head.